Morning, my name's Simon. Welcome to Bennett's BikeSocial. Welcome to Sardinia. And welcome to the launch of Aprilia's 2022 Tuareg. I'll tell you what, as roads in Europe go, this coastal road in Sardinia, which I've been down a few times on various different bike tests, is one of the best. It's a glorious strip of tarmac, and boy is it grippy, especially in the wet, which fortunately it isn't today. However, it was yesterday, and the rain has washed quite a lot of shit into the road. Sorry, I mean debris, beg your pardon. So, anyway, here we are in Sardinia on Aprilia's 2022 Tuareg. What is a Tuareg, I hear you say? Well, I think Aprilia named it after a VW SUV, but they spelt it wrong, and they actually named it after some Saharan tribes people. Of course, they first used the Tuareg name back in the 80s. They had a 50cc and a 125cc off-road bike, and they had a 600cc road tax single. And they even had plans to go rally racing with it and do some enduro. But those plans came to nothing because Aprilia bosses were seduced by the lure of Grand Prix racing, and they had a little bit of success. I don't know if you can see that. 54 world titles. They're very, very proud of that, Aprilia. So unfortunately, the off-road stuff sort of went by the by. And their last sort of, I think their last proper off-road bike was the Pegaso, which is again another sort of 600cc road tax single back in the early 90s. In fact, it was the very, very first motorcycle that I road tested as a professional journalist in 1992 for Performance Bikes magazine. I remember being slightly disappointed by the fact I'd landed on Performance Bikes, and the first thing they gave me to test was an Aprilia sort of vaguely off-road styled 600cc single. But anyway, that was a long time ago. Anyway, here we are again in 2022 riding an Aprilia off-road bike, and this one is also called the Tuareg. So what is the Tuareg? Well, pretty obviously it's the third leg, if you like, in the stool of the RS 660 platform, the parallel twin 270-degree crank 659cc. In the RS 660, the road bike, it's making 100 horsepower. In this trim, it's making 80 at 9,000 RPM. But I'll get onto all that in a second. It's just worth mentioning, I'll just nip past this geezer here. See, there's some rubbish in the road. Hey! So anyway, it's just worth mentioning, when Aprilia were talking about the Tuareg, sort of the big Kajiva elephant in the room, if you like, is the Ténéré 700, because that is the obvious competition for this bike as a kind of almost entry-level adventure bike, a lightweight, certainly a lightweight adventure bike with a sort of less than 100 horsepower. But Aprilia sort of went, so they didn't ignore the existence of the Ténéré, but they did go to some effort to say that this is not the same thing, even though, I mean, it's aiming at the same customer. And they said, no, it's not a rival for the Ténéré. Effectively, it's much better than that. They said that they were working really hard to get all that signature Aprilia handling and chassis performance on the road, but also get some actual, proper, credible off-road chops out of the bike. Which, without mentioning the Ténéré, is actually sort of a bit of a backhanded swipe at it, because that bike is equally a road and an off-road compromise. That's the same patch of ground that it's aiming for. Anyway, having said all that, so back to the engine. So this is based on the Twino and the RS 660 motor. Oh, there's a goat. Wow, goats in Sardinia. Who'd have thought? But it is detuned. It's down to 80 horsepower at 9,000 RPM. It actually makes a few foot-pound of torque more than the RS 660. But that sort of retuning job is quite a significant thing. Obviously Aprilia have done it with engine management changes and fueling changes, but it's also got different cam timing. It's got less overlap, which I suppose in a way it's almost like they've Euro 5'd an existing Euro 5 motor even more. Pushed all the torque down, pushed all the revs down, all the power down the rev range, and completely reshaped the power curve to give it much more bottom end. At the same time, they've also given it a shorter first gear, and they've also given it a shallower sump for more ground clearance. And to do that has meant re-engineering some of the oil delivery to the crank. So it's not a straight swap. It's not, you know, kind of a just chuck an RS 660 motor in a sort of long travel suspension and an off-road frock and call it a Tuareg. There's a bit more to it than that. And there's a bit more to it with the frame as well. We have a steel tube frame. It has some aluminium inserts that sort of, you know, the engine hangers are aluminium. We have an aluminium swing arm, and in terms of the chassis, what else have we got? We've got 43mm KYB forks, fully adjustable. It's KYB rear shock, it's fully adjustable. And then a few other sort of specky facts and figures. We have a weight of 204 kilos, which is the same as the Ténéré's claimed weight. We have a seat height of 860 millimeters, which is actually a little bit lower than the claimed seat height on the Ténéré. And then I guess you kind of get down to the stuff that really separates the Ténéré and the Tuareg, which is Aprilia's suite of electronics. Now the Ténéré is pretty basic. It comes with ABS, I think. That's about your lot, and it comes with pretty sort of basic LCD clocks. The Aprilia has got a nice colourful TFT dash there. It's got 4 riding modes. It's got full adjustability over things like traction control, engine braking, ABS. I mean, the modes are Explore, which we're in now, which is the kind of the road riding mode. This road is incredible, isn't it? Explore, yes, you have Urban, you have a sort of an individual custom mode, and you have an off-road mode. And obviously ABS settings, traction control settings are all tailored to suit, but you can individually tailor them as well to your own taste. So that's a pretty comprehensive package of electronics. We also have a little USB port down here, which is dead handy. The bike doesn't come with a quick shifter. That's available as an optional extra. It is on this bike actually, but it's an optional extra. And what else have we got? We haven't got an adjustable screen, and I don't think the Ténéré's is either. So it's, you know, it has the full suite of electronics, but apart from that, we haven't got heated grips. We have got cruise control. We've got quite a nice button layout here. And so really, then you come down to the price. Well, 2 prices for the Tuareg. So you have the 2 base bikes, the base coloured bikes, acid green. No, sorry, acid gold. I got carried away then, which is a kind of a greeny sort of colour. Acid gold and Martian red. And they come in at £10,600, which is just over £1,000 more than the Ténéré. And then you have this colour, which is called, I think it's called Intaco, Tagelmust, which I understand is the headgear worn by the Tuareg. It's sort of an indigo cotton head wrap, like a scarf around the head and face. I'm not quite sure why they called this colour that, because I don't know, it doesn't look anything like what the Tuareg actually wear, but hey ho, it does look like a 1980s Aprilia paint job, which if you like that kind of thing is pretty cool, and I have to say, I kind of do. But anyway, it's more expensive, £11,200. So £10,600 for the base bike, and then you get down to that question of, is it £1,000 better than a Ténéré? £1,000 buys you, well, on paper, it buys you the electronics, basically, because apart from that, the 2 are pretty close on spec. So, what we're going to do is a bit more riding along these magnificent roads. We're going to have a bit of a play off-road as well, and come back to you with some kind, hopefully, some kind of verdict on the 2022 Aprilia Tuareg.
Well, that has been an interesting ride on Aprilia's 2022 Tuareg. So, what can we tell you about it? Well, first thing we can say is Sardinia is rapidly becoming my favourite place to ride a motorbike in the world. I don't think I'm going to move to Scotland anymore. I think I'm going to move here instead, because this place is just incredible. We've had some great off-road, we've had some fantastic on-road. Like I say, quite a few manufacturers have had launches here. Ducati have launched a few Multistradas here, Yamaha have even been here, and also Moto Guzzi launched the V85 TT on this very road. And there's another connection with the V85 TT, because the Tuareg is styled by Mirko Zocco, who's the same guy who styled Moto Guzzi's V85 TT, which is of course the best looking bike of the last 20 years. Whether you think this is or not, you'll have to wait and you'll have to choose for yourself. I'm not so sure. I think there are other considerations involved in the styling of the Tuareg. But anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. So where are we with the Tuareg? Obvious comparison, like I say, is Yamaha's Ténéré 700. Now that bike costs £1,000 less, but it has £1,000 worth less of traction control, electrical gubbins, stuff that you might say, oh, I don't really need that, this is my traction control, all that kind of thing. For me, at my level, which I think is kind of like enthusiastic amateur, I'd say, I like traction control, I like the off-road setting, I like the option to have the rear spin but not go completely wild on me. So I kind of appreciate that over the Ténéré. I think if we just focus on the differences with the Ténéré as well at the moment before getting too deeply into the Tuareg. I think the Ténéré is the MT-07 engine is a fun motor. I mean, that's its kind of central, at its core is fun and hilarity. And the Ténéré, although it's the best iteration of that, it's the best use of that engine compared to the Tracer 700 and the MT-07, which are great bikes, but the Ténéré really is the kind of the top of the pile with that motor. It's still kind of got that long-legged, soft, fun kind of feel, which is very unintimidating when you go off-road. And the big question for me is, can a Tuareg match that? Can it still have that kind of novice-friendly feel to it? And the answer is yes, it can, but it can also go further. So the suspension is a lot stiffer. It's got more travel as well. I think it's 240mm, which is more than the Ténéré. So it's a slightly more serious bike off-road. And it's a more serious engine too. It's slightly more powerful, but it's not quite as loopy as the Yamaha. But it is quicker, I think, and it feels just as meaty. And I'm absolutely convinced that Aprilia have done a naughty on us and taken the filter out of the airbox, because the airbox sound when you pin it, especially with no earplugs in, it's incredible. It's really, really loud. It's got a right bark to it. It's a real snarl. So it's yes, you can still ride it as a kind of a relative enthusiastic amateur off-road, but it will go with you, I feel. And I think, looking at some of the antics of some of the other journalists today, it can, push you further and go further off-road. So if that little bit of extra off-road expertise is your thing, then I would suggest that the Tuareg's got it, and maybe the Ténéré, you might start to run into some limitations. On-road, which is my thing, I'd say that the stiffer suspension, stiffer in the sense that it controls the dive of the bike backwards and forwards. It's not harsh, there's no kind of ride quality issues, but it does give you an incredible confidence in the front end. I mean, it really, really does dig in. I memean, considering you've got twin discs at the front on a 21-inch front wheel, at the end of those long forks, you've got to be pretty confident, or Aprilia have got to be pretty confident, that those it's not going to be over-braked. And it isn't. The suspension is really good. The tyres, these Pirelli Scorpion, what are they, Rally STRs, yeah, pretty good. Tubeless as well on this fella. So its actual road performance is good. Again, for a relative pace, the Ténéré is probably a little bit softer, a little bit more road orientated. It kind of feels in my head as if it's heavier, even though they're both quoted at 204 kilos. In my mind, the Ténéré is a heavier bike. I think just in terms of ergonomics as well, getting onto sort of things like the screen, which isn't adjustable and it looks quite short, but it's pretty stiff. It doesn't give you much buffeting. You can feel something going on at the top of the shoulders. If it was a little bit taller, I'm sure there'll be a touring option available. I think it would just suddenly get really quiet, because if you dip your head, I mean, I'm 6 foot, I just dip my head a little bit, it goes silent. So I think ergonomically, it seems to have a sort of more of a presence at the front end than the Ténéré 700. But these are kind of fairly small differences. You'd need to test the two back to back to really get to the bottom of it. But in terms of the £1,000, what your money's gone, I'd say it's gone in the suspension, and I'd say it's gone in the electronics. And then what else have we got? Well, you know, there's the colours. I mean, that's kind of up to you guys, whether you want the acid gold and the Martian red, which is £10,600, or whether you want the 11,200, which is starting to get a little bit pricey. You've got loads of accessory options. This thing's actually got a quick shifter up and down, which doesn't come as standard. It's pretty good. It's not probably another few £100. It's pretty good on this. This morning I had a few problems finding neutral, but once the bike sort of woke up and has got warmed in, it's probably not got very many miles on it. That's kind of gone away, so I've been finding neutral no problem at all. Quick shifter's really good. No missed gears, no kind of struggling with it at all. It's just absolutely perfect. So it's something that I would spec if I could. We haven't got heated grips as standard. There's a sort of a fair list of things that don't come as standard. Obviously it doesn't come with panniers. There's two different types of panniers available. There are, I think, plastic cases, which I believe slot straight in. I'm not sure if these are handholds here. I believe they just clip straight on. You don't need any extra stuff. If you get the metal panniers, then you need a metal frame that goes on the back. But there we go, that's sort of a basic overview, I think. I'm trying to think of anything I've missed. I mean, we haven't got a centre stand on this. We have got a USB port at the front, which is quite handy for your sat-nav. So we have the little bar here, like we do on the Ténéré, where you can mount your sat-nav, although to be fair, if I put a sat-nav there, the size of my sat-nav, it would kind of get in the way, so I kind of want that on the handlebars. But anyway, right, and there we go. That is Aprilia's 2022 Tuareg. If you've got any comments or questions, or you want to know anything that I've missed because I've been blathering on, please put them in the boxes below. You can go on to www.bikesocial.co.uk and get a full, written, properly considered verdict on the Tuareg. And thank you very much for watching. I'm talking here. Is my head, is it out of the frame or in the frame? All in?
All in, sì.
All in, yeah. And here. All good?
Perfect.
So yeah, head is in top of frame. Excellent. Cool.
Look at him.
Yeah, loads of room.